We are in the middle of Torah Yud Gimel, called Ashrei Hashgacha. And we're up to part 2 in this Torah, Ot Bet. Okay, so Rabbi Nachman says like this, וזה בחינות התגלות התורה של לעתיד לבוא, כמובן בזוהר, שלעתיד יתגלה אורייתא דעתיקה סתימה, כי עיקר קבלת התורה על ידי השכל, שהוא משה משיח, כמו שכתוב, עיר גיבורים על החכם. There's a pasuk in Mishlei that says, a wise man ascends the city of the strong. Ir Giborim, the city of the strong, ala chacham. A wise man ascends. Okay. So, Rabbi Nachman explains like this. There's a concept in the Zohar, and there's actually psukim in the words of the Nevi'im, in the words of the prophets that point to this as well, that when Mashiach comes, there's going to be a new revelation of the Torah. Okay, so the heretics, the Epicorsim, right, the Christians and all that, they take it to mean they understand it and completely. They take it to prove all their mistakes, all their heresy. But the Zohar explains it that it's not, doesn't mean that there's going to be a new Torah. There's going to be a new Torah, but it's not going to be contradictory to the Torah that we have today. And it's not going to remove the Torah that we have today. What does it mean, a new Torah? A new Torah means a new level of Torah. Meaning that just as we have 4 levels of Torah today, we have the pshat of the Torah, the simple understanding of the Torah, the remez, which is including all of the things that are alluded to and hinted in the Torah, in short, right? The metaphors and the like. The drush is all the drashot, is all the ability to explain and to connect one idea to the other idea. And so that's what we have in the Gemara. It's about taking something in the Torah and opening it up, unpacking it as they call it nowadays, right? And opening it up and connecting it from one place to the other, one pasuk to the other, one idea to the other, and building from that a deeper understanding and showing what the things are, the lessons behind that come out of the piece of the Torah that we're making a drasha on. That's the drush. And the fourth level that we have today are the secrets of the Torah, the Kabbalah, the Zohar, the Arizal, and that's the inner dimension, what's behind all of that. And these 4 levels of the Torah, says the Arizal, they correspond to the 4 worlds of Asiya, the physical world, Yetzira, Beria, and Atzilut. And Atzilut is the Kabbalah. Kabbalah, it corresponds to Atzilut. Atzilut is the world of only godliness. So Kabbalah is part of the Torah that teaches God, consciousness of only Elokut, only godliness, only Hashem. There's no other entity spoken about. It's speaking about, it's the Torah that reveals to us that everything in the universe and everything in our experience and everything in the Torah is nothing but godliness. That's what Kabbalah is about. That's what the world of Atzilut is. Whereas you have other worlds where you have angels in the world of Yetzirah, and you have angels in the world of Bria. So there are other entities, even though they're completely only messengers of Hashem, but there are other entities. There is another existence. And the world of Asiya, which is where we have halacha, pshat, the simple understanding of the Torah. There is all of this physicality going on in the world, but we elevate the physical. The world of Atzilut, the world of Kabbalah, is nothing. It's to reveal that there's nothing but godliness. Everything is only godliness. And od milvad, there's nothing but Hashem. When Mashiach comes, there's going to be a 5th level of the Torah that's revealed. And that's the Torah of Keter. The Torah of Keter The Torah of Keter is called Pnimiut Hasod. So Kabbalah is called Sod, the secrets of the Torah. But there is a deeper level, and that's the inner secrets of the Torah. It's the source of the secrets of the Torah. It's the secrets of the Torah at source. Okay? And they are all these 5 parts of the Torah are represented by the 5 parts of the Yud Kei Vav Kei. The final Hey of Yud Kei Vav Kei is the Asiya, it's the Pshat. The Vav represents the Yetzira and the Remez. The first Hey represents the Bria, and it represents the Drash of the Torah. The Yud of Yud Kei Vav Kei represents Kabbalah and the world of Atzilut, whereas the Kotza Yud, the spike on the Yud, represents the Pnimiuta Sod, and that's the Keter, and that is the Pnimiuta Sod. That's the Keter. That's the Olam. In Kabbalah, it's called the Olam of Adam Kadmon. It's a world that's higher than Atzilut. In short, we give a Rashi Tevot, and it's Adam Kadmon in Rashi Tevot is Ak. And that's why the Mekubalim, they call it Ak, because they are fond of using Rashi Tevot, that when we have certain concepts that are spoken about all the time, over and over and over again, we use the acronym for it. So Ak. Or for example, when you want to say when you want to say all of the 4 worlds of Atzilut, Beria, Yetzira, and Asiya, we have a Rashi Tevot for that, Abiyah. So, the Pnimiuta Sod is, we said, the Yud, the Kotza Yud, the spike on top of the Yud. That's the world of Keter, and that's in the worlds from Abiyah, it's the world of Adam Kadmon. Ak ve'Abiyah, that's the acronym that the Mekubalim use. Ak is Adam Kadmon, Abiyah is Atzilut, Beria, Yetzira, and Asiya. Now, the Torah that is going to be revealed by Mashiach is the Torah of Pnimiuta Sod. It's the Torah of Keter. But what does that mean? That's the Torah that reveals how everything, it's not just how everything is godliness, okay, that's what Atzilut is, but it reveals how there is only godliness. You don't even allow for anything else to exist. Everything is how it was in source, before it was created. How everything was in potential form. Everything is returned to be included at that point, at that stage of reality. What will be is that everything is returned to be included in the source of all of existence. That's the Pnimiuta Sod. And so that has a Torah as well, because every level of Torah that you learn, you are rectifying that level of reality. And so that's why it's important that a person learns all the 4 parts of the Torah every day, so that a person can rectify all the 4 parts of reality. A person lives in this world, and the physical body is in this world, and so you have to rectify the point of this world, the physical world, through learning the pshat of the Torah, learning the halachot of the Torah. And you also have parts of your soul that, because your soul is like a long chain going up from the end of it is in this physical body, and it goes all the way up to the highest worlds, to the source of your neshama. And so it goes through all of these different worlds of Yetzira and Beria and Atzilot, etc. And therefore, you need to rectify all of these worlds that your neshama includes within it. And so that's why it's important to learn all the 4 parts of the Torah every day, so that you can connect to the Hashgacha of Hashem, the Hashgacha of Hashem in each one of these 4 worlds, in each one of these 4 aspects of reality. The 4 worlds are 4 aspects of reality. Why is that the Hashgacha of Hashem? There's a place in the Likutei Moharan where Rabbi Nachman explains that the Zohar teaches us that the eye of a person has in it 4 parts. If you look at an eye up close, you have the black in the pupil right in the middle, and then that has 3 other rings surrounding it. So 3 other rings, 2 rings, and then the white. And so these are the 4 parts of the eye. The Zohar, the Tikkun Zohar explains that this is corresponding to the 4 worlds of Atzilut, Beria, Yetzira, and Asiya, the Yud Kei Vav Kei. Atzilut, obviously the highest aspect is the pupil, is the middle of the eye. And then going outwards are the other worlds. They are more peripheral. The direct Hashgacha, the complete direct Hashgacha, is the greatest level of Hashgacha, experiencing nothing but Hashem. That connection is represented by the pupil. It's like when you look at someone, the pupil of the eye sees directly. The other parts of the eye represent, even though all the other, even peripheral vision comes from the pupil of the eye, as we know scientifically, but the other parts of the eye represent, Kabbalistically, they represent the peripheral. Just as let's leave it at that for now. Now, the Rabbi Nachman explains based on this, that if we want, the eyes of Hashem are connected to through the Torah. You can connect to Hashem's vision, which is all metaphorically, right? All this is metaphorically, because Hashem sees everything and Hashem doesn't need eyes to see. But in this mashal that the Zohar is using of the eye of Hashem, so to speak, is the Torah. And that's the way Hashgacha is drawn upon us. And so just as when you want to be seen by someone, you want to be as close as you can to that person's eyes, to that person's vision, right in the direct space of their vision, right? If you're too far away, things that are too far, the eye can't see things that are too far away. So you want to be right in front of the eyes of the person that you want to be seen by. In the same way, you need to have a direct connection to the Torah and all four parts of the Torah in order to draw this tremendous Hashgacha of the Ribbon Shalom upon us each day, every day. When you're learning Torah and you're learning the four parts of the Torah, imagine as if you are right now being seen, so to speak, by the eyes of Hashem, feeling Hashem's vision penetrate your whole existence. Okay, and that's why the Arizal says this, that it's important to learn all the four parts of the Torah every day. And the Arizal, as he used to walk out of the Beit Midrash every day, at the end of the learning day, as he was walking out, he would he would learn by heart, he would learn psukim from the Chumash, psukim from the Navi, and psukim from the Ketubim, from the whole Tanakh, right? So he had a few psukim he would learn from each part of the Torah, from the Torah, Nevi'im, and the Ketubim. Then he would learn some Mishnayot, a parak of Mishnayot, a piece of Gemara, and a piece of Zohar. Okay, with some halachot and like this, he was learning all the parts of the Torah. Rabbi Chaim Vital, he saw this beautiful minhag, this beautiful habit that the Arizal had, this beautiful minhag that the Arizal would do every day. And based on this, Rabbi Chaim Vital instituted that we should, the sefer called Chokli Yisrael. The Chokli Yisrael has in it, for every day of the week, all the different parts of the Torah, a certain learning for each day of the week, for every parsha of the year, and in each day of the week there is all these parts of the Torah, a certain part. Now Rabbi Nachman says like this: So what we're speaking about here is the aspect of the Torah that will be revealed when Mashiach comes, the Torah of Mashiach. And that is called in the Zohar, or Gaita de Atikas Setima. That's called in the Zohar the Torah of Atikas Setima. The Torah of Atikas Setima is a Torah of the Keter. Atikas Setima is a name that the Zohar gives for the Keter, and literally it means Setima means the hidden. Atika means the ancient. Why ancient? Because it's referring to the Keter. And if you're going to see all the 10 Sfirot as a timeline, so then the higher the Sphira, the older that Sphira is. And that's one way that the Zohar describes to us, kind of connects to our heart, the idea of Sfirot and the 10 Sfirot and the difference, the relative difference between each one, even though there is no time there. It's beyond time and beyond space. But all of this is in order to connect it to our hearts that are physical, so that we can grasp upon something through our physical senses. And so one of these metaphors that the Zohar uses is the relative difference between the higher Sfirot and the lower Sfirot is the relative difference in time. And therefore, the older Sphira is the higher Sphira. The higher Sphira will be older and the lower Sphira will be younger. Just as the grandparents will be, if you will, grandparents could be a higher Sphira, and then the grandchildren will be a lower Sphira. And the same way, the Keter is considered the oldest, the ancient one, because it's the highest Sphira. And it's also called the hidden, as we said, Atikas Tima, the hidden ancient one, because he is so beyond our grasp, he is hidden. That's why it's called that he is hidden, Sitima. The level of how Hashem is experienced in those higher Sphirot, in the highest sphere of Keter, is completely beyond grasp. It's beyond our ability to have any connection to. Okay, it's beyond our physical sense. I mean, even the lower sphere is beyond our physical senses, but relative, that's completely hidden. And so that's the ancient hidden one. That's the Atikas Tima. And the Torah that Mashiach will come to reveal is the Torah of Atikas Tima, the Torah of the Keter. Kikar Kabbalat Torah al yedei HaSechel, shu Moshe Mashiach, kmo shekatuv, ir giborim ala chacham. The Torah, receiving the Torah, when we receive the Torah through our intellect. And our intellect, the ability to understand and to comprehend with our consciousness, that's the function of Moshe. That's the function of Moshe Mashiach. Rabbi Nachman calls it Moshe Mashiach, meaning that Moshe is synonymous with Mashiach. Moshe and Mashiach are the same aspects. We see this in the Zohar. We see this Rabbi Chaim ben Atar, the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh says this as well. Moshe and Mashiach are the same aspects. And Moshe is the aspect of the intellect. It's the ability of the consciousness to comprehend and to make associations and to understand divine knowledge, to understand the Torah, and to connect it to your heart, and to fill your heart with that knowledge, to become enveloped by that knowledge, that divine knowledge, the knowledge of the Torah. That's the da'at of Moshe Rabbeinu. That's the intellect, that's the consciousness, and the chokhmah, the bina, the da'at. And that is, since Moshe is synonymous with Mashiach, so that means that Mashiach is also bringing this aspect, okay? And he's going to bring this aspect on the level of Keter. He's going to bring this intellect or this consciousness, this understanding, okay, this consciousness that is fitting the reality of Adam Kadmon, the reality of Keter, revelation, source revelation. And that Torah encompasses, has within it, contains within it that level of consciousness that is befitting that world, that revelation. And that's what Mashiach will come to reveal. The Torah of Yechida. Kemo shekatuv ir giborim ala chacham. To the wise man ascends the city of the strong. Ir giborim ala chacham. The wise man is Moshe Rabbeinu. Ala ir giborim. He ascended to this city of the strong. So let's see. ומי שיש לו בחינת משה משיח הוא יוכל לקבל תורה ויכול להמשיך הערת התורה ללמד שאר בני אדם כי התגלות התורה באה מייחודה דקות שם בייחוד שכינתה. One who has this aspect of Moshe Mashiach is able to receive the Torah and is able to draw the light of the Torah to teach it to others, because the revelation of Torah comes from where? Where does the revelation of Torah, where do the chidushim, insights in the Torah come from? A deeper, a newer understanding in Torah, where does that come from? It always comes from a yichud, a unification of Kudsha B'Richu Shchinte. כמו שכתוב, שמע בני מוסר אביך, אביך עדה קודשא בריחו ואימך עדה כנסת ישראל. Okay. Rabbi Nachman is now pointing to this important understanding that we see in the Arizal. the Arizal teaches us how there are two types of unification above. There are two types of yichudim. There's called yichud of chitzoniut ha'olamot and yichud of pnimiut ha'olamot. Yichud of chitzoniut ha'olamot, what does that mean? It means the outer part of the worlds, the physical aspect of the worlds. Again, this is also relative. So even in a higher spiritual world, there is relative to the soul of that world, there is a body in that world, the physical aspect of that world. In this world as well, we have the physical shell of this world, the body of this world, and then you have the soul within every part, every aspect of this physical world that gives it life, that gives form to matter. The tzura lechomer, the form of matter, is the soul of the body. And in every world, you have to have these two aspects. Now, what allows for these two aspects to exist? Because these two aspects need the light of Hashem in order to exist. Everything exists through the light of Hashem, through the will of Hashem. And so that light is drawn through a unification. Why is that? Big rule in Kabbalah, you cannot draw light without a unification that precedes it. That means that every time you want to draw energy, there must be a unification of two higher entities, and the unification on that higher level will bring this light down, to be drawn down from one level to the other. And every world, when it's drawing down the energy to the world after that, there also must be a unification in that world in order to draw the energy down to the world that follows it. So, because every world has these two aspects, the chitzoniut and the pnimiut, the outer shell, the physical aspect, so to speak, and the inner, the soul of that world. So therefore, there also must be two types of unification above it in order to draw the two types of energies. There's the energy that will give life and will give existence to the physical aspect of the following world. And then there's the energy that will give the spiritual, the soul, to the following world. So the unification for the outer world, for the outer aspects of the world, the energy that will be drawn to give existence to the outer aspects, that unification is called yichud chitzoniut, the outer unification. And the inner unification, yichud pnimiut, will bring the shefa, will bring the energy to give existence to the inner, to the soul of the following world. And in the same way, that's in the Arizal, that's all Kabbalah. Now, based on this, Rabbi Nachman explains, in the same way, when we receive Torah, new Torah, insights in Torah, a deeper, newer understanding in Torah, when you open up a Gemara and you understand something, even if it's not something that you're learning today that you've never learned before, it could be something that you've learned many times before, but now there's a deeper understanding to it. Every time you have that deeper understanding, so there's an added knowledge of Torah in quantity or in quality. In quantity, you're learning something new. In quality, learning the same thing, but on a deeper level, understanding it in a new way. That energy of the Torah, that new understanding, that new knowledge, that deeper knowledge, is a shefa that is being drawn into you, that you are meriting, that you are receiving. It's an energy of life. That's the energy of life. That's the energy that you draw from the tree of life. That's the energy of the Eitz HaChaim. And because it's an energy of life, and it's a shefa, and we said the rule is in Kabbalah, when you draw shefa, when you draw light, it must come from a unification of the two entities above you. We are considered children of Kuchabrichu and Shchinte, the Sphira, the Vav of Yud Kei Vav Kei, and the Hey of Yud Kei Vav Kei are considered the parents of our neshama, of our soul. We are children to Kuchabrichu and Shchinte, says the Zohar. And therefore, the two entities above us, the world above us, through which this energy, the Shefa, is drawn to us is Kudsha Brichu and Shchinte. And for that energy to be drawn to us, the rule is you must have a unification on that level, on the higher world, in order to draw that energy down to us. And so in the same way, the Torah that I'm drawing, this new Torah that I'm learning, that I'm understanding, that new Torah knowledge that I'm adding, that I'm receiving, must have a unification of Kudsha Brichu and Shchinte, the Vav and the Hey of Yudke Vavke, for that energy to be drawn to me. And says Rabbi Nachman, we see this, all of this is alluded to in what the famous pasuk that Shlomo HaMelech says, Shema bini musar avicha, ve'ati tosh Torah timecha. Listen, my son, listen to the rebuke of your father. What does it mean, rebuke? It means Torah, but it's an aspect of Torah. It's an aspect of Torah that is different to the aspect of Torah of the mother. These are two aspects of Torah. But there's the Torah that is drawn, the Torah that is drawn from the unification of your father and your mother, from the combination of your father and your mother. And that's what it means when it says, Shema bini musar avicha, listen, my son, to the rebuke of the Torah of your father, ve'ati tosh Torah timecha, and do not abandon the Torah of your mother. So when it says Musar, it's one type of Torah. When it says Torah timecha, the Torah of your mother, it's a different type of Torah. But what that pasuk is teaching us is that the Torah that is drawn to us is drawn from both of them together, from the combination of your father and your mother. And you must receive from both of them, from that unification, in order to receive the Torah that you understand now, that you are accepting now. So now that we have established that, we have to explain how do you cause that yichud, that unification, to happen. Now we've established how important it is if you want to receive new Torah, if you want to receive deeper Torah, if you want to receive an added level of Torah, you need to have a unification on the level above you, Kudsha Brichu and Shchinte, the Vav and the Hey, your father and your mother. You need a unification, a combination of those two entities, and that brings the ability, that allows for that shefa, that energy, just like when we are physically created, right? When a child is born, so too that energy that is drawn through which that creates the child is also from the combination of the father and the mother. So too, in every world, in every spiritual world as well, the life energy, the physical aspect of a world, and the inner aspect of the world is drawn from a combination of those above that world, the two entities above that world. Okay, and so us too, we need that unification of the father and the mother, the Kudsha Brichu and the Shchinte, the Vav and the Hey, in order to draw new understanding, deeper understanding in Torah, an added level of Torah. And that's what we're speaking about here. So now we've established that, the importance of this unification, to receive Torah. Now we must understand, how do we cause that unification to happen? Because now that it's so important to have such a unification, to receive the Torah, to accept the new Torah, to accept the deeper Torah, to receive the Torah of Mashiach, we must understand how to cause this unification. And if we will understand how to cause this unification above, by Kudsha Brichu and Shchinte, then we will be able to draw that energy, to draw and to receive that deeper Torah. So we're going to speak about that next step, the unification, how to cause that, in the coming shiurim Be'ezrat Hashem.